My name is Jeff Orrock, the meteorologist in charge here at the National Weather Service office in Wakefield. And going to take a little bit of time today to talk about the new probabilistic snowfall forecast. Want to go over exactly what they mean. There's definitely some room for misinterpretation of these forecasts, so I think it's important for critical decision makers to kind of understand a little bit behind what these probabilities mean and how they can be applied and also how they can be misinterpreted. What is probabilistic snowfall? Basically, it's going to be a series of graphics that really are going to show you the range of possibilities when it comes to snowfall predictions. It is based on our official forecast, so the forecasters are still engaged in the forecast and the probabilities. We use a lot of different models to come up with these statistical analysis, which we'll talk about. It's going to give you a best case scenario, which is, basically we're going to have at least this much snowfall. It's going to give you a worst case snowfall prediction as far as, if the forecast goes really south, how much snow might we get? And it's going to give you the most likely prediction, which is generated by the forecaster. We're going to also give you the probabilities of seeing certain accumulations in increments from a trace of snow to 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 18 inches. So what's the chance that we may have accumulations reaching certain amount? So kind of going back to why this came about, and this was an example from New York City. Anytime we're forecasting snowfall, there's a lot of variables that go into that. Everything from the track of the storm, how deep the cold air is. Is the cold air going to be here the whole time? Is it leaving? The snow ratio, so basically is it a dry snow, is it a wet snow? So there's a lot of factors that go into snowfall accumulation, including, of course, the low-level temperatures and ground temperatures. So when that happens, we get a lot of variability with snowfall. This was an example from New York City where they were forecasting a lot of heavy snow for New York, anywhere from 24 to 36 inches in this example, and even parts of inland New York they were forecasting 24 to 36. So this was a very significant event. There was a lot of media obviously talk and hype about this storm system. I mean, that would have been an absolutely crippling event even for New York. 2 to 3 feet of snow. In some areas you look at the map here on the left of the observed amounts. In some places they did see 21 inches to over a foot of snow. In other areas, not so much. They didn't get nearly that much snow. So what happened? What this is at the top now that you're seeing is several different models that produce snowfall accumulations. And actually we see more models than this. This is just we call it a short range ensemble forecast predictor. So it's models that are being kind of merged together. And you're seeing all the different model runs. The black line in the middle is basically what we call the median, kind of what's the middle of the road as far as all the models. And you can see for New York City, the middle of the road, as far as if you took the 50%, it was really about 17 inches of snow. Now you saw a lot of runs, a lot of lines here below the black where you're seeing snowfall predictions of anywhere from 5 inches to maybe about a foot. So much lower amounts, and you do see some models are generating snowfall amounts of 3 feet, 36 inches of snow on the very, very high end. Now the official forecast out of the New York City office, you can see there for New York City was about 24 to 30 inches. So they're sitting up in here. So they were a little bit above what I would consider the mode or the middle ground of the model distribution. So the question becomes, how do we better communicate the probabilities, the chances that something is going to occur, whether it's lesser snow or whether it's more snow? So what we're going to try to do is give our partners, give you all better information regarding the ranges and the possible solutions. And we'll talk about what this actually means in the graphics. So step one, what we actually do is we forecast the snow. The process that the forecaster goes through has not changed. He's looking at all of the guidance that we have coming in. We're looking at what the weather pattern is doing, how things are changing, how things are evolving, and we're coming up with our best forecast. What is it we think that is most likely going to occur? And so that process for us is not changing at all. Then what we do is we run tools and statistical analyses, and they start to try to figure out where does our forecast, our prediction fit within all of the different model ranges of possibilities. And basically it creates a statistical analysis is what it does. So here's what we're thinking. What are the chances it's going to be more than what we're thinking? What are the chances it's going to be less than what we're thinking, using all of the guidance that the forecasters have available to them? And I won't get too much into statistics. Basically, this creates a distribution. So what you see here in the middle of this bell curve is what we call the mode. So this is kind of what you consider to be the clustering of your solutions. It's the top of the bell curve. So what are most of the models saying when it comes to snowfall accumulation? And that's this middle, this high ground here, this upper part of the curve, and that's actually what we call the mode. And there's going to be some models and solutions that are going to say it's going to be more snow, and some that say it's going to be less snow. One thing to realize is that when we're doing the statistical analysis, we're using 70 different computer models, both national and international, that are ingesting massive amounts of data. And that's what's creating our statistical distribution. So it's a lot of data that goes into this and a lot of statistical analysis to try to come up with what are the what-if scenarios for this event. So we start to get a range of solutions, and like I said, I think it's important to understand this. Remember, the 50th percentile, the middle, is the top of the bell curve, and that's going to be really defined by the forecaster. So when the forecaster issues his most likely scenario, that defines what the 50th percentile, or we call the mode, is. It sets the middle of the distribution. So the 50th percentile, or 50% probability, is always going to be our forecast and the most likely. From there, the system does a statistical analysis on all the different 70 model members that we have coming in, and it tries to figure out, okay, what's at least the 10th percentile. So the 10th percentile means that only 10% of the computer models have snowfall that's less than this. So let's say 2 to 3 inches of snow. This is snowfall across the bottom. So in this example here, only 10% of the models are saying that you're only going to have 2 to 3 inches of snow. Our forecast, the 50th percentile, or the middle of the distribution, is up around, let's say, about 6 inches. Now let's jump way up here to the 90th percentile. What this is saying is that only 10% of all the different models that are running are predicting, let's say 13 inches of snow or more. And so really what this is saying is our best guess is about 6 inches. The worst case, it could jump up maybe, let's say, to 10 to 13, but we're sitting around 6 inches. But you're at least going to get about, maybe 2 to 3 inches of snowfall. So that's really what this is telling you. It's not going to look like this, thank goodness. The graphics are going to be much more user-friendly, but this is just explaining how these statistics work. So let's go on to the next slide. So again, we're going to give you best case, worst case, and the probabilities of experiencing different amounts of snow accumulation. This is going to be done in graphics and also in tables. So it's going to be a lot of information, and we'll show you some examples. This is what the examples of the graphics will look like. This is actually examples from the the Washington, D.C. office. They actually started doing this last year, and we just joined the pilot program this year. So I'm going to use examples for right now from the Baltimore, Washington National Weather Service office. So in the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see here this was a pretty big, broad range of distribution. You can see on the low case, there were some models here saying that there was going to be zero snowfall. What this is telling you is this is the 10th percentile. So this is on the very low end of the scale. So they say expect at least this much. In this example, it was 0. So that may not be, for this example, completely useful. The most likely here is at the bottom. So the forecaster was predicting anywhere from 3 to 4 inches of snow across portions of northern Virginia, with kind of a broad area of 2 to 3 around that. This was the exact forecast that the forecaster was providing. Based off of the model distribution, the worst case, or the potential, which potential is really the worst case scenario, was up to 7 inches of snowfall. So they're forecasting 3 to 4 inches. There's a potential that it could go to 7 based on what some of the computer models and the guidance is telling us. So that's kind of how you would interpret this. And we'll go through some examples here that are actually live on the web. Now, in addition to just the overall accumulation, telling you, what is it we think is going to fall and what's the worst case, what's the least amount, we also provide these probabilities for different amounts of accumulation. So it goes anywhere from 1/10 of an inch, which basically is telling you that snowfall or sleet. So what is the chance that at least something frozen is going to fall from the sky? That's what the 1/10 of an inch means. What's the chance that you're going to have at least, 1 inch? What's the chances of 2 inches or greater? What's the chances of 4 inches or greater? So in this example here, this is the chance of seeing 4 inches or more of snow. And so what you see here is the highest chances, of course, are up over Maryland, where you see about the 54%, 50 to 54% probability. And remember, the forecaster, sets the forecast, and the exact forecast is the 50th percentile. So that would mean that more than likely the forecaster is actually predicting about 4 inches of snow over this portion of Maryland. And as you get down to D.C., the probabilities drop off a little bit when you get down to Warrenton, down to about 34%. So that would kind of be probably on the upper edge of what the forecaster is predicting, but there is a 34% chance that you could see 4 inches of snow. So it gives you an idea of the probabilistic distribution of where the snowfall is going to occur, and you see some higher probabilities here being picked up by the terrain. So you can see the models are able to capture terrain issues, which will also be maritime issues with warmer air coming in from the ocean and from the bay. Temperatures, our forecast temperatures play a role in this statistical distribution. So we can account for, if marine air is going to sneak in from the ocean and maybe shut snow off east of I-95, this will help to account for that in the statistical distribution. But depending on what your critical snow amount is, if it's going to be, temperatures are forecast to be in the mid-20s, and maybe even an inch of snow could cause a problem because of road surfaces, then 1 inch may be really important. If temperatures are marginal, or you're worried about having to DOT for pushing snow, and how much snow may actually fall, I mean, is there a chance we're going to get 8 inches? So you can kind of run through this to try to figure out exactly what's the probability of certain snowfall accumulations. So this is a pretty useful tool, and I'll show you where this is on the website. Underneath the bottom of the website, you'll actually have a city listing. So we have several cities defined for each jurisdiction, for each county. And so you'll be able to go into some of your local cities and try to look at that distribution. What is the minimum amount of snow that I can expect? What's the most likely forecast that the forecaster has generated? What's my maximum worst case snowfall amount? And then what's my chance of seeing, no snow? What's my chance of at least getting a little bit? What's my probability of getting 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6? So we have this for individual locations as well. And so this could be helpful if you're trying to brief some of your localities. When you go to the National Weather Service website, and in fact our website works like this, as well as the Washington, D.C. office and also Blacksburg, Virginia. Basically all of the National Weather Service offices serving Virginia are running this program now. So we've been able to get this statewide. So whether you're looking at forecasts for Roanoke, Richmond, Norfolk, Hampton Roads, Fredericksburg, Washington, D.C., you'll be able to access all this same information. On the local Weather Service webpage, you can kind of scroll down here, and you'll see a snowflake icon for winter weather. And when you click on winter weather, it'll take you to our probabilistic page. And this is what the actual website looks like. As you scroll down the page, you'll see where you see expect at least this much. So when we click on expect this much right now, so you really see no snow for expect at least this much. That's your 10%. So that's you're going to get at least this much snowfall. So for right now, we expect nothing. What's the exact forecast? The bigger graphic here in the middle is the most likely. Of course, we're not really forecasting any snowfall. As far as the worst case, okay, worst case shows you that there could be a little bit of frozen precipitation falling, sleet maybe mixed in with some snow, but it's still well less than an inch. I mean, this is just kind of giving you an idea of where some frozen precipitation might fall worst case. Now, this is just for sleet and snow. Just beneath the snow and sleet forecast, you do have the freezing rain prediction. So in this case, you do see that we do have a light glaze, very, very minimal amount. And this will be a very brief period of maybe a light glaze on some of the trees that's going to go away really quickly. As I continue to move down the page, this is where I start to get into all of my snow probabilities. What's the chance of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch of frozen precipitation? So basically what that's saying is something may fall from the sky and be frozen. So there's only a 15% chance, you can see across much of Virginia, of seeing snow or sleet falling from the sky. What's the chance of seeing an inch of snow or more? Nothing. There's no way we're going to have any snowfall accumulation. Again, it'd be a light glazing. So this is kind of a neat way to quickly interpret, okay, there's a very small chance I might see a period of maybe a little bit of snow and sleet. What's the chance I'm going to get an inch? It's really not going to happen. So let's go to a Weather Service office that for this event is actually forecasting some snowfall and see how we can apply this. So we've shifted up to the Mount Holly, New Jersey National Weather Service office. Website looks identical. It's exactly the same as ours. Let's see how much snowfall they predict. So they're thinking they're going to have at least, maybe around Georgetown, maybe a dusting, a little less than an inch, and up to maybe about at least 2 inches as you move further north into New Jersey. So it gives you an idea that that's your minimum amount of snowfall. What are they actually forecasting? Well, they're forecasting up to 4 to 6 inches to the north, with a kind of an area of anywhere from 2 to 3, 4 to 6, kind of in this area here across the middle part of their forecast area, and then it drops off to about an inch or two as they move south into Dover and Chestertown, and eventually just maybe a trace of snow by the time you push down to the eastern shore. So that's their exact forecast. What's the worst case? Go look at the worst case scenario. So the worst case is really about 5 to 6 inches, up in the far north, maybe about anywhere from 3 to 4, the middle part of their area. And again, down south, the worst case is still just only about maybe less than an inch, maybe an inch. So you can kind of move down so you see the probabilities of ice if you're interested in that. You can go on down here to the bottom and look at the probabilities of experiencing a different snow amounts. So what's the chance that I'm going to see at least something frozen falling from the sky? Well, it's pretty much given. You can see here anywhere from 83 to 98%. Maybe a little area there near the coast where the probabilities drop to 72. But basically, it means there's going to be some snow maybe mixed with some sleet falling from the sky. That's given. What's the chance of getting at least an inch? Well, now you start to see where things start to get trimmed back a little bit. So my best chance of seeing at least an inch of snow really run from this Freehold down to Trenton, down to Wilmington, and then places north. I mean, maybe even a little bit south of that. But you can kind of see here where the kind of the probabilities really start to increase once you get along the interstate and then locations north. Once you get south of that, especially down to the Vineland, Chestertown, real probabilities are really pretty low, about 15 to 30% of seeing an inch. What's the chance of seeing 2 inches? Again, you see the probability is starting to trim back, still pretty high once you get north of the interstate. The chance of seeing 4 inches. Now the chance of seeing 4 inches, is pretty much limited to the far north. And remember, the National Weather Service official forecasts will line up with about the 50th percentile. So where you see a 50% probability, that's probably going to be, that should be very close to our official forecast. So if I look at the far north here where they're, I say greater than 4 inches, and then it kind of decreases by the time I get down to Allentown, if I go up here and look at the official forecast again, that's really what I see. The 4 to 6 is in the far north. By the time I push down south of Allentown, it drops down to 3 to 4. So the best probability of seeing 4 inches or more of snow is really once you get to Allentown north, and the probabilities we're kind of shaking that out. What's the chances I'm going to get 6 inches of snow? Really pretty low. And so even though they're forecasting a snowfall or a range of 4 to 6, because we forecast in ranges, the chance of getting up to 6 inches of snow is really very low. But the chance of getting 4 inches of snow is pretty good. So you could say 5 is somewhere there in the middle. But you can really see how the probabilities from 4 inches of snow jumping up to 6 inches of snow drop off dramatically. So again, this would be a pretty useful tool when we're talking about trying to plan for how much snowfall may occur. Moving further down the block here, this is where you get into your city listing. So if I'm interested in specific locations, I can look at those cities. I can select by county. So if I was up in Maryland and I knew my county, I could select my county, and then I could go straight to that and get my probabilities. I'll show an example off of our website, off the Wakefield site. This is our city listing. We do have a pretty hefty city listing here. If I'm interested, so what am I expecting in Isle of Wight? So this is some of the cities that we've put into the database for Isle of Wight, and so I'll be able to see, what is my probability at different locations. I'll do another example, further inland. We can go to, I won't call it our snow capital, but we'll go in here to Louisa, where they do get quite a bit more snow. And so we've tried to define a fair number of localities in each county, because how we can get somewhere in every event, in some county somewhere, we get that pretty big range of snowfall, somewhere across central Virginia, sometimes in the Tidewater. So this is to try to help you out as far as figuring out across your county what the different probabilities might be from one location to another. This will update every time the forecasters recreate the forecast. So anytime we're updating snowfall, this will run, and it will be updated. So definitely, during the overnight hours by 4 in the morning, usually by about late morning, midday, this will be updated, and again in the afternoon, and then maybe in the evening as well. So we will be updating this as the event unfolds. One caveat to this, which I think is very important to understand, is that as soon as the snowfall starts to accumulate, and let's say, we've been forecasting, let's say 4 or 5 inches of snow. When the snowfall actually starts to occur and we get that first 1 to 2 inches on the ground, we will continue to provide the most likely snowfall, but the probabilistic snowfalls will be blanked out. And so once the snowfall event occurs, you'll still be getting a best guess, most likely prediction from us, but you'll no longer be receiving the probabilistic snowfall once the event starts. The reason for that is because right now at this moment, the statistical analysis cannot take into account what has already fallen. That can be very confusing. So let's say, for example, we're forecasting 5 inches of snowfall, and the probability of 5 inches of snowfall, it's the middle of the forecast, so it's 50 to 55%. Once we pick up 2 to 3 inches of snowfall, now the probability of getting, 5 inches of additional snowfall is very low, obviously, because we're only forecasting 5 inches. So if we're already have 2 to 3 on the ground, we're only expecting 3 inches more. And so the probabilities of 5 inches of snow would drop off to 0. It could be very misleading. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, so just know that all this probabilistic information will be available all the way up to the snow event. And once we actually start to get some significant accumulations going, we will shut this down. And you'll still have our most likely snowfall prediction. We'll be giving you what we've always provided, but the probabilities will be turned off because they will get very misleading as the event unfolds. And so that's our probabilistic snowfall interface. Again, it's on our main web page, and you can just click on the winter weather icon right off of our main website, and that'll take you to the probabilistic snowfall. We will be briefing these as we go through winter events. This year are going to be times where the probabilities are saying that there could be some snow or ice falling from the sky, maybe a 30% chance where it's not in our forecast because that's not the most likely. But maybe some of the outlying models, are saying that we could see some snow and ice. So if you're watching these probabilities, and you're looking at the chances, when I say the chances for anything falling, so let's say, we come to this website and then you're looking at the worst case over here on the far right, or if you're coming all the way down here, and you're looking at the probability of at least 1/10 of an inch falling. So on this graphic here, you might see times where, it's 10, 15%, and basically that means that there's a very small chance that there could be some snow and sleet falling. And this is a good example because in our actual forecast, we really don't have snow and sleet forecast. And so you might see low probabilities here. I would expect low probabilities here and it not to be in our forecast. It's just telling you 10% of the models, 15% of the models are producing at least a little bit of snow, but nothing's really going to accumulate because we're only talking about 1/10 of an inch. So nothing too exciting here. So just as you're watching the page this winter, just be aware that if you have questions, reach out to the forecaster, reach out to us, and let us know what questions you have.